the Orphanage. This is a little bit of information on the Orphanage. I have to say that the Orphanage kids come to church every Sunday. They have service about 11 o'clock in the morning and then another one at 3 o'clock after they have their lunch. So everybody stays in Reverend Titus's area the whole time. The Orphanage kids have to get on their way by probably 4:30 because they want to get back before it gets dark. It takes them about 2.5 hours by bus, and you'll see what I mean by bus in a little bit, to get back. They have to transfer 3 times in order to get home. But this is what the roads look like.
This is also the political road.
Oh, they paid you right to you?
Yes. They pay if you give us.
So next time you vote, they pay a little further?
Yeah. You want to see how the rice mill working?
Sure.
Okay.
Alright, so that's the road going to the Orphanage. This is the walk to the Orphanage. We get to the end of the road and then we have to walk down this path, which is about a 10-minute walk. I'll just show you a little bit of it. Kind of starts out on a pretty wide path. There's Hank still sweating profusely. We'll buzz along toward the end here.
You okay?
Yes.
What's your step?
So that's getting to the Orphanage. And that is a picture of the Orphanage. This is where they live, and they actually have 2 of these huts. This is the one of them where the mother and her daughter and the girls stay. This is their kitchen, and then the other one is in the back. Take a little walk around the Orphanage. The boys pick rice when the rice is ready to be harvested, and there's a rice mill we're going to visit. They also cut grass. They actually go out in the street, cut grass, and they feed the cows, which I'll show you shortly. Reverend Titus keeps about 3 or 4 cows right in his compound, and they milk the cows and breed the cows, and they have a deal with the farmer where they get to keep some of the milk, he gets to keep the rest of it, and then I think every second calf they get to keep. So they're trying that project as a working project for the orphans. Electricity just came through about a year ago. Otherwise they didn't have electricity either. That's the bathroom facilities. A little garden plot that they have. was there when we were there. Skip that. Hank suffering in the heat. Close-up of Reverend Titus. This is some repairs to the rotting woodwork in the house. This is their kitchen. You can see this is a little wood burning area here where they cook. Pantry. What they do is pack their bedrolls up here, and then at night they throw them on the floor and they sleep, and then during the day they pack it up there. Actually, this is some rice here, but bedding, and so they get out of the way, but they use it at night for sleeping on. Some rice sickles for harvesting. And a pump for water. This is yoke for the oxen for plowing the rice fields. And they have, this is kind of their mechanized tractor for plowing also, a little one-cylinder thing. Here's another group. That was not in Myanmar. Oh, this is what I wanted to point out. Here, the aging process is a little slower. Here's the rice mill, what it looks like. Near the orphanage, they have this 1800 vintage rice mill. And they're just busy running it through this machinery that comes from China. It's quite an intricate work of belts and pulleys and things quite precarious, but it does the job. Separating the rice into the different parts that they use. OSHA's occupational safety, something, it's a U.S. thing. And they'll come into a business and make sure that everything is safe. You know, don't go more than 3 rungs up on the ladder. I'm thinking this place is not OSHA approved. Packed up in, I don't know, what are they, probably 40 pound, so what is that, 20 kilo bags. This is the family that runs the mill. They live right there. You see a lot of these tractors, old tractors, manufactured in China years ago, but they have taken them and converted them to power plants for everything, including pickup trucks. This is what it's like starting it. The video doesn't do it justice. It sounds like an M80 going off when it starts. Large explosion. I had to clean my pants on after that. Milking project. This is the Reverend Titus's Orphanage Milk Cow Project. This was interesting too. These cows sit right in here. They are tethered with about a 1 meter long piece of rope, and that is it. They cannot go anywhere. They eat the grass, which is harvested by the orphans and milked by the orphans. And there's some calves tied up. And that's what it looks like. Orphans harvest the grass from wherever they can find it, highways, byways, they just go out and collect it and bring it in bales. This is the farmer that they're working with. He's teaching them how to milk, and it kind of looks like this. right. Does he know how to? Do you know how to do it?
พี่พี่tao bảo đó. Yes.
Okay. You can see they know the routine. This is one of the orphans. So they put balm on the cow.
Those cows are pregnant.
Okay. And they dutifully record everything.
So the weather, when the weather is changed from hot to cold to hot, and they know, the cows know very well, but it affects their health.
Uh-huh.
So they have to take care of it.
And then he takes it loose. Yeah. Okay. When I was thinking of this coming up, they carefully measure it out. I got to show you this. I mean, this is how precious the commodities of food are in Myanmar. They carefully milk the cow, and then they measure it, they strain it. Don't waste it more.
These are hybrid with local cow and Frisian Dane cow. So it's one third.
The orphans get one cow.
One third.
1/3?
Yeah, one third of Dane cow and Burmese cow.
Yeah.
They
gets
try
the
that
rest.
half and easily die.
Okay.
The weather they cannot bear.
Uh-huh.
So
And then they write it down.
Shear the milk?
yes.
Okay.
So they keep records of it, exactly how much milk they get from it.
And shear the milk?
Yes.
None of it done with digital technology that we all use today. Let's see. So that's the end of part one. Now we'll take a little tour in the country, and I'll just try to spend 15 minutes on that. We'll keep it going. Does that sound reasonable? Okay. We'll skip some of the collection taking, of course. Let's see. Save it. And excursion. Looks like this. So this is Myanmar, the country. Hank, the big guy, and some people that didn't quite get as much protein when they were growing up, Reverend Titus and his wife, Serti. Hank is a big, tall guy. Reverend Titus doesn't own a vehicle. He rents a vehicle when we come over to get around. Otherwise, he uses a taxi service and things like that to get around. But this is our rented Jeep, which overheats, and their vehicles are not quite our standard. So people ask me, what changes did I see since I was there 3 years ago? The main thing is the cars. Unbelievable. The first 2 times I was there, the vehicles were absolutely junk. I mean, they had Chevys welded to Fords just to keep them running, and they could figure out how to do it. And certain vehicles, none of the electronics, of course, could they fix, so they had the old mechanical stuff that they could tinker with. And these vehicles, the doors were, wired shut because the mechanisms didn't work anymore. And the transmissions, they were doing interesting things in order to get them to shift. And of course, the dashboards were gone. None of the speedometers worked at all. And they were in very, very bad shape. This time I came, I could not believe it. Toyotas everywhere. Toyotas that were only probably 10 to 15 years old, relatively new for Myanmar. So when I asked about it, Reverend Titus says, yes, that all happened in the last year. U.S. sanctions came off. Japan put a program together to trade, it was their Cash for Clunkers program in Japan, traded the old cars, they sold them to Myanmar. And in Myanmar, they have 160% import duty. So cars were very, very expensive. The government said, turn in your old clunker, we'll waive the import duty on the car. So everyone was getting rid of, the clunkers because they were so valuable just for the tax savings. The government would let them come in the country and waive it. So got a couple pictures to show you what's going on there. They're basically working hard to improve the infrastructure there so people have a place a port to get the goods in and out of Myanmar. This, I couldn't walk up to it, but this pile of cars was at least a mile long and 100 feet high. Well, 50, I exaggerate a little bit. But it was a huge pile of cars, and that's where all the old cars go. And they're being recycled, sent back to China to reclaim the steel. So Louis Padnos is a local Holland firm that does this. So that's the inside joke right there. It looks like the Myanmar Louis Padnos. Let's see, visited a couple of churches. This is the Emmanuel Baptist Church downtown. Reverend Titus knows the pastor at this church. We went inside and looked around a little bit. This was the caretaker of the church. I took this picture because I love all the hanging fixtures. There's just fans and lights and stuff hanging off the ceiling. It looked kind of busy to me, eclectic. And there, of course, is a pagoda. Pagodas, you see them all over the place in Myanmar. You fly in, coming into the airport, pagoda, pagoda, pagoda. So the Buddhists have a lot of influence there. And here's a church with a pagoda right out the view of the church. By the way, if you want to read a very fascinating book, it's called On Golden Shore. Is that what it is?
To the Golden Shore.
To the Golden Shore, I think, yes. Adonira Judson was the first missionary, Christian missionary to Myanmar back in the 1700s, and he translated the entire Bible into Burmese, which they still use today, and his influence with Christianity still exists today. The trading company, just as an illustration of how things are opening up, in order for us to send money to Myanmar, you have to have a way to get it in the country. And we didn't know how it worked. Reverend Titus had mechanisms that were set up, kind of the underground cash flow to get outside money into Myanmar. But it was a trading company. These trading companies, of course, they're trading goods and they have to move money back and forth. So they need a way to get the money in and out. We visited the trading company this time. We couldn't before. So because it's the country is opening up, Reverend Titus felt comfortable letting us meet basically the family that runs this trading company. Purchasing a laptop in Myanmar, we of course use technology pretty much almost exclusively for our work with Reverend Titus. So we need to get him a good laptop computer. We use laptops because power is not very good in Myanmar. It's on maybe 3 hours a day. The rest of the time it's off. So battery-powered laptop works perfect. We upgraded his laptop, an amazingly nice store facility. Again, showing how things are opening up there. The last time we were there, the stores were nothing like this. But this is a store that has sprung up and now they're selling computers. Here they're putting the Burmese character sets. They stick the characters on the keys so that you can see the funny curly cues to do the conversion. There's our reoccurring theme. The ceilings are a little low there. Those girls thought it was kind of funny too. So there's Hank down to our side. Everyone, whenever they see Americans, they always do this. I don't know why that is. The Swayagon Pagoda, we visited. That's always the big tourist attraction. Turns out that we were there the day before the President of the United States visited. And that was kind of interesting because no president of the U.S. has been to Myanmar ever. So guess who got to go there first? And we were there the day before he was there. They were busy sprucing the place up. And yes, Obama came by 2 days later, I guess. The amount of gold in here is amazing. Part of their practice is to take these gold leaf stuff and stick it on everything, and they pound it really thin, but they just keep putting on layer after layer. And this whole place is overlaid with gold, tons and tons of gold. I did a calculation in the previous slide set and came up with gold at I think $300 an ounce, and it's actually more than that now. There was billions of dollars worth of gold there. Multiple, 300 million, maybe that's what it was, a lot. But anyway, there they are, busy worshiping. It's you know, very ancestor type of worship. And there is literally a God for everything. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, January, February, March, birthdays, holidays. There's one for an idol for every purpose. You just have to find the one that's appropriate for you on that day. There's an ancient bell that had a bunch of Burmese words written in it. That's what the Burmese looks like. Oh, here's an interesting one. Well, here, this is it. I'll come back. I thought it was this one. Adoniram Judson, 1788 to 1850. At the age of 25, he went from North America to Burma, and he is the one that translated the Bible. They built a church 80 years ago and put his name on it. Of course, this church wasn't there when he was there, but it has his name on it now. So it's kind of interesting to go visit that church. 1932 it was built, and they were celebrating 80 years last year. This is the Bible that he translated. Reverend Titus uses it yet to this day. And he recognizes errors in it in the translation, and that's why he produces the Sunday Digest. He'll point out the errors in the Bible and how it should be translated, or what the King James Version says, for instance. So we found this open door, and we wondered where it went, and there's this rickety staircase going up. It was the bell tower, kind of neat. Reverend Titus wouldn't go up there. We were crazy enough to do it. Sort of like walking right on the edge of the cliffs, you know, up on the coast. It held Hank, so I figured I could follow him up too. So we went up to the top. We met this other couple. That's why the door was open. They apparently were there. We found out later we probably weren't supposed to be up there. But we climbed all the way to the top. Hank came through that little teeny door there. And it's kind of scary. It looks short from the ground, but from the top, it looks pretty tall. That's a view of the city skyline. There's the pagoda that we visited right there. Everyone cooks and worships with fire, so you see smoke rising all over the city. And of course, if there's a bell, you can't resist ringing it. And we found out we shouldn't have rang it because the caretaker came to investigate. He couldn't speak our language, but it was plain that we shouldn't have rung the bell. Reverend Titus recognized many people as we're walking along as being from the Chin State. And he would just walk up to them and introduce himself, and they would do the Burmese bingo and figure out who was what. And sure enough, we're downtown, and we met this guy, and Reverend Titus talks to him, and they had a connection, of course. I wondered, how did he know they're from the Chin State? Then it came to me. It's the Dutch male pattern baldness. They all look just like that. Some local street scenes. Here's a building. This building, I took a picture of it 3 years ago. It looks the same today as it did 3 years ago. It's partly constructed, and people are living there. You see the wash hanging out there, and off they go. These are the buses that they use for transportation, basically a pickup with benches in it, and people can sit in it and move around. This is, I'm going to skip the video. Here's another one of these tractor things hooked up to sort of a pickup truck. They're, of course, very handy with a torch to keep things going. Buddhist collectors. Buddhists have all different ceremonies, and they're always collecting money. Sitting by the side of the street, banging their pants, playing music obnoxiously loud. Church service on Sunday, and they were doing a parade marching down the street. I think they did it intentionally, I suspect. But Reverend Titus had to stop and wait for them to go past because they have big loudspeakers and they just play music as loud as they can, and it's very disruptive. Okay, yep, some more buses all over the place. When they break down, they just park them on the side of the street and proceed to fix them wherever they break down, and they break down often. This is a couple shots of Reverend Titus's house and his church. This is their dryer, their garage port. Hank learning some Burmese. There's their family devotion Bibles, the Burmese ones. Catechism books, written work in Burmese. Reverend Titus's study is here, and the kitchen is here. Their sitting room. Hank would only eat the rice. And Hank, of course, is a computer geek, even more than I am, so he was busy setting stuff up. Reverend Titus's library. Pretty extensive library. A lot of it came from the art school, Asian Reformed Theological Seminary. We also, excuse me, upgraded his internet while we were there. And you can see the difference between Reverend Titus and Hank is only 6 inches when Hank's sitting down. Okay, they showed you some of those, the laptop. Family shot. Oh, a thrilling taxi ride at midnight. We made one mistake we should not have done. But the place where we stayed is about 20 minutes, a half hour away from where Reverend Titus lives. So he would shuttle us back and forth all the time. Well, I was pretty comfortable with using the GPS, which I lost one time. The taxi driver unbelievably brought it back to me. That's how honest they are, most of them. But anyway, was pretty comfortable with that. And so Reverend Titus flagged down a taxi driver, and we drove back with him. He drove absolutely insanely crazy. They often don't turn their lights on the vehicles at night because it uses the lights too much. It drains the batteries too much. So they drive along at high rates of speed, dodging people and bikes without their lights on in the pitch night. And of course, the electricity is limited. They don't have street lights or anything like that. So it's dark, and you can hear all this noise all around you. And they're driving like crazy. And this one drove super crazy. When we got back to the hotel, we talked to the hotel proprietor and asked him, you know, what did the taxi driver say to you? And he says, he said he'd never driven white people before. He thought you must be some official of high importance and figured he had to drive really fast. We should have told him, settle down. We're not that important, and we want to stay alive. But anyway, halfway back, he needed fuel. So he cut in line. Fortunately, he talked to someone, and they let him in, and he got like about a quart of fuel so that he could keep going. And that was it. The other thing I was going to tell you is this was my 3rd visit, so I was kind of accustomed to it. But Hank Vanderwall, who came with, had never been out of the U.S. before. And, you know, I tell these stories and people hear them and they, you know, believe them in quotation marks, but there's nothing like the experience, as you know. So when we got there, we landed in the plane and Reverend Titus met us at the airport, which is fairly modern, and took us out into the city where all the sights and the smells and the sounds and the noise and the hustle and the bustle and the smells and everything occur. And I was busy pointing out landmarks to Hank, look at this, and it's dusk, the sun is setting, the soot is unbelievable, it sticks to your shirt. I mean, just riding through the street, you got soot all over your clothes, and you can get it, you smell it in your nose, you blow your nose, and it comes out black. I mean, it's bad. I turned and I looked at Hank after I was explaining something. His jaw is wide open. Hank, I said, what's wrong? John, he says, this is way worse than I ever imagined. So that's what it's like. We stayed at Golden Guest Inn, which was a pretty nice, in quotation marks, Western restaurant. They serve breakfast every morning. It looks like this. There's the proprietor. His father actually started this when Myanmar was the land of opportunity, and it was. People left China, came to Burma when it was under English rule because it was the land of opportunity. His father started this hotel to make a new life, get out of China, and then of course he's still stuck there, and his kids are stuck there. And he has to tell his kids who have been abroad, don't want to come home, but they respect father and mother. He says, you must come back and help me run the hotel, and they do. So there they are, busy feeding us our breakfast. This is our room. They do the laundry amazing. I mean, they pack it up like it's brand new. So you send it to the cleaners, and there your shirts come back wrapped in cellophane and everything. Million Coin Restaurant, this is where we would go to eat. This tree was made from, this table was made from a tree that fell in the cyclone Nargis 2008. It's a big, thick hunk of wood, which is kind of neat. But the food there is very safe for Westerners to eat, so we ate there often. Oh, and the cook, there he is out back, and they're inspecting the food to make sure that it's good. Oh wait, different place. So there's the table. Discount gas in Myanmar. Reverend Titus, of course, the underground economy is thriving in Myanmar, including fuel. So if you want to buy fuel rather than the regulated government stations, there's these guys that pump it from bottles and cans and jugs, and you just stop there and they'll fill your tank with their mystical supply. I asked Reverend Titus, where does it come from? Well, you can imagine when the government is clamped down as they are, well, corruption just spreads. And what happens is the truck drivers who are driving the fuel truck, they go to the fuel station and they empty it into the tanks of the fuel station, then they drive off. Well, there's probably a little bit in the bottom, so they park the truck just right, and they drain it out, and they sell it to these guys, and these guys then sell it to the customers that come by. So you know, it's that 10% rule that they know how to siphon off the top and keep going. And that's how it runs. Definitely do not want to smoke there. The ground is saturated with fuel oil. I asked him, I said, well, the police must know that it's here. I mean, if it's illegal, what are the police going to do? Yeah, he says, the police obviously know it's here, but that's why they have to keep it out of sight and out of mind. So if a government official comes by and challenges the police, there's plausible deniability. What gas station? I didn't know there was one here. That's what they would say, of course. Okay, here's the one that you can be proud of. This is a British cemetery, or yeah, it's a cemetery for the many people that died in World War II, and it's maintained by the British. And so we stopped and visited that. It's very meticulously cared for, and I'm told that your tax dollars are supporting this. Thank you very much. So there it is, right in Burma. Many names of Indian, Muslims, lots of Mohammeds, who all died in World War II. That was my favorite. Okay, I think we're getting to the end. What is this? Just some candid shots from here and yon. Another one of the themes. Hank's a big guy. Oh, yeah, I was going to tell you, the Arts House. You know, when you're trying to run a mission field, and I should tell you, Hope has this work right now, and we're working with Reverend Titus. Reverend Lanning has developed a number of training videos, which we've sent over via the internet. Reverend Titus has those, and he's presented them. And that is what they use for education. Originally, we had this arts house, and we're always working with, you know, how do we make this church self-sufficient, because that would be a good goal, is to get them to be self-sufficient. So we monitor what their people are giving and what we're giving, and at least try to keep it in control so that they know that it's not about American money or, you know, Western money that keeps them going. Their own people have to have ownership in the program and keep it alive. Well, they had this arts house, and the church members got to live in the arts house. And we told him, you know, you probably shouldn't do that because you can't show favor towards church members that are taking advantage of the system. And so Reverend Titus, he agreed with that and dutifully went and leased the home out. Well, I think what happened is over time, and Reverend Titus told us, he said, I have to have people here so they can protect the house. You know, you got to cultivate the gardens, and you got to be here to keep the thugs out. Well, we didn't listen to him, and we told him, rent it out. He did. We came back 3 years later, and I'm pretty sure Reverend Titus doesn't want to admit it, but squatters had taken it over. These were some pretty rough people. The house had fallen into great disrepair since I was there 3 years ago. And there's some, Surrey wouldn't go much past the gate. She was a little afraid of these guys, some pretty rough-looking characters there. You see her peeking around the corner. But I quick snapped a few pictures. Thankfully, we had Hank with us, and they all looked up to Hank too, and we just you know, walked back to inspect what it looked like. They had built a bunch of lean-tos and kitchen areas, and it didn't look that good. And there's the characters that live there now. Reverend Titus told us that they were previous renters who hadn't paid their rent, and they were moving on, and some other respectable renters were coming in. So we'll see what happens. Bokyok Market. Well, that's another change. Tourists are on the street now. You can see this is, if you haven't been, if you're looking for the ultimate tour, way different than anything you've ever been on, go to Burma. You can visit there now. And people are doing it, and it's amazing. Quite the experience. I'll buzz through these real quick. Oh, this literally is true. Here's Hank walking down the street. He's big. You can see this gal is looking at him out of the corner of her eye. I'm walking about 10 feet behind. This guy saw him and was like, look at this guy. Shock and awe. That was the common theme. Yes, there's the market. This is the downtown. Used to be called Smith's Market, but now it's the Bokyok Market because that's the non-English name. I think it was Smith, wasn't it? Or do I have that wrong? General Smith. So there's what goes on down there. Here's the tree that's used for face painting. You just buy a tree like that and you just rub it on a whetstone with water and paint it on your face. Buy it and store it. Everybody just taps their power into the local power pole. Just come and get it. This was amazing. You can see stores like this popping up all over, selling refrigerators and appliances. They're coming in and starting to change the economy there. These are typical restaurants. Yeah, there's another computer store. No pictures, she told me. They do have beggars trying to sell water and stuff like that. You can see Reverend Titus, no, don't need water. People selling stuff all around. Influence of the U.S. is everywhere. There it is, the Burmese, Abraham Lincoln. Go figure. Wood fires, fried food. This is, these street vendors are all over collecting food. Are selling food to make a living. This is how everyone sits. They don't have benches, so they can just kind of squat down like that, and they'll sit that way for 20 minutes with no problem. Me, I'd roll over or something. Couldn't do it. Myanmar phone booth, they just have some phones hooked up to the local line. You can make a phone call. And I think that's about it. Anything else that's interesting? Here's just my final one. Path of life thou showest me, of joy a boundless store is ever found at thy right hand, and pleasures evermore as they sing. So, that's it. Thanks for your attention. The opportunity to show you what we're doing in Myanmar. I don't know what the format is. You want any questions, comments?
Do they suffer persecution over there?
I'm sorry?
Do they suffer persecution?
Persecution, yep, good question. The government pretty much leaves people alone as long as they don't uprise against the government. The government is about making sure that they maintain their power. So they recognize, I think, that the Christians, most of them anyway, not all of them, but most of them aren't about changing who is in power. So if you're not doing that, they'll leave you alone. There is a persecution in other areas of countries. The Muslims and the Hindus basically are fighting with the Buddhists, but the Christians are pretty much left out. Now, up in the Chin State, which is where Reverend Titus comes from, and a lot of people have migrated from there, that's where the most of the Christian population comes from. There, in the past, they were persecuted by the government, as I understand it. And there was ethnic fighting going on there. And it wasn't necessarily about religion, it was just ethnic fighting in general. That's where a lot of the kids from the orphanage came. They lost their parents in this fighting, and they had to survive on their own. And there is no government safety net. So it's a tolerable state right now. Certainly they don't have freedom. We notice Reverend Titus always closes everything up for safety reasons. But if you're careful, the government leaves you alone. But don't do anything to get in their face. Freedom of speech they do not have. Okay.
Where do the kids in the orphanage go on to do? Like, do they just send them out to do their own thing after a certain age, or?
Good question. Yeah, where do the kids in the orphanage go afterwards? You can see the kids are growing up now that they have been in the orphanage. This is our first experience with an orphanage past that. Most orphanages, when the kids become of age, they move on and they don't stay with the church. That is, we're working with Reverend Titus trying to figure out what's going to happen. His dream is that they will become full church members and part of the church. And they're getting close to that point right now, so we're trying to cultivate that because that would be the goal. But that is definitely an issue with most orphanages. The kids leave and move on. So then what you wind up having is an orphanage that's, it's economic aid basically. Okay? All right. Well, should we close with prayer then? Why don't we do that? Let's pray. Father in heaven, we come unto thy throne of grace. We are thankful that we have this throne to come to honor thy name, to worship thee, to show our thankfulness unto thee. Thou art a great God, worthy of all praise. We are thankful for this day which we could have, a day set aside for the purpose of honoring thy name. We are thankful that we can fellowship with saints from around the world. Truly, thy people are gathered from all corners, tribes, tongues, and nations in this world. We can see that right before our very eyes. We're thankful that we can visit with fellow saints and discuss matters pertinent to thy church. We pray that thy kingdom may come and thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven, and that thou wilt use us in various ways, in many ways, for this purpose. Pray that thou wilt be with us now as we go about our separate ways. Keep us from harm and danger. We pray especially tonight for Reverend Titus and his group in Myanmar, that thou wilt be with them. Be with Reverend Titus, that he may continue to be used to spread the gospel, the Reformed truth, which has been carried on for many generations. We pray that he may spread it to the people in Myanmar, and that we may be used also to work with him in this cause. Forgive now our sins, we pray. Blot them out of thy book of life. We ask this all in Jesus' name alone. Amen.